If Earth really mattered, High Admiral Conrad Vale said, smiling through the open channel, it would have sent more than one ship. The words rolled across the bridge of the USN Resolute like a hand laid on a coffin. No one spoke. Outside the forward glass, the Valdran Dominion fleet filled the black like a metal storm, hundreds of warships hanging past the edge of sensor range, their running lights cold and perfect. In front of them sat one human patrol cruiser with scratched paint, tired engines, and a crew of ordinary people who had been awake for 19 straight hours. Captain Nathan Cole did not look like a legend. He looked like a white man from coastal Maine who had missed too many birthdays, drank coffee too late at night, and carried a picture of his wife in the inside pocket of his uniform jacket because he did not trust digital frames. His hands rested on the arms of the command chair. Calm hands. That was what everyone saw. What they did not see was the way his jaw tightened when the enemy ships finished forming a half circle around them, or the way his thumb pressed once against the worn seam of his wedding ring. The young communications officer at Station 3 swallowed hard. Someone near engineering whispered a prayer under their breath. Commander Rachel Hayes stood beside Nathan with a tablet held against her ribs, her face still, her eyes moving from one warning light to the next. The Resolute was alone on every public scan. No reinforcements. No carrier group. No big, heroic line of Earth battleships rising behind them. Just one ship between the Valdran Dominion and the blue planet 80 million miles behind her. Vale leaned closer to his transmitter. His translated voice was smooth, amused, almost gentle in the way rich men sound when they have already decided the bill belongs to someone else. Captain Cole, your species has been granted a mercy. Lower your shields, surrender your command codes, and allow Dominion peacekeepers to assume control of Sol traffic. Refuse, and your government will be remembered as a reckless village that mistook itself for a civilization. On the bridge, nobody breathed right. Nathan looked at the tactical display, then at the clock in the lower corner of the screen. The numbers kept counting down in quiet green. He could feel his crew watching him, waiting for the speech, the curse, the brave American line that would make fear feel smaller. He had none ready. Real fear did not care about speeches. Real fear sat in your stomach and asked whether you had done enough for the people standing behind you. Nathan picked up his cold coffee, took one slow sip, and set it back into the magnetic cup holder. Rachel, he said, his voice low. Log his last statement. Exact wording. Commander Hayes tapped the tablet once. Logged and time-stamped. The Dominion Admiral's smile widened. He thought the humans were documenting their own surrender. He thought paperwork was what weak species did when courage ran out. Nathan looked back at the screen and spoke evenly into the open channel. High Admiral Vale, this is Captain Nathan Cole of the United States Navy vessel Resolute. We acknowledge your demand. Vale's golden eyes narrowed with satisfaction. Across the bridge, the crew waited for the next sentence like it might decide whether they ever saw home again. Nathan leaned back, not relaxed, just steady, and added, for the record, Earth has not invited you in. Counselor Marion Voss joined the channel 30 seconds later, and somehow her calm voice made the bridge feel colder than Vale's threats. She appeared beside him in a polished council feed, dressed in soft gray ceremonial cloth, her expression arranged into something that almost looked like concern. Captain Cole, she said, the Galactic Council recognizes the emotional difficulty of this moment. But your vessel is isolated, your fleet is absent, and your home system is in no position to resist a Dominion peace action. I strongly advise you to lower your shields before pride turns a manageable transition into a tragedy. Nathan watched her face on the screen and felt something old and bitter move behind his ribs. It was not rage. Rage was loud and simple. This was worse. This was the feeling a man gets when someone insults his house while standing on his porch and calling it a courtesy visit. Behind him, Lieutenant Mark Ellison, the youngest officer on the bridge, stared at the council feed with wet eyes he was trying hard to hide. Mark had a baby girl in Des Moines he had only held for 6 days before deployment. Nathan knew that because good captains learned those things, not for speeches, but because names mattered when orders got hard. Counselor Voss, Nathan said, please clarify your statement for the record. Are you saying the council recognizes Dominion authority inside the sole defensive boundary? Voss blinked once. She had expected fear, maybe a plea, maybe an angry speech she could label as human instability. She had not expected a question with legal weight. I am saying the council prefers restraint from all parties. Rachel Hayes made a small sound through her nose, not quite a laugh. Nathan did not look away from the screen. That is not what I asked. Vale's smile faded a little. Around his image, the Dominion command deck glowed with gold and black metal, every surface designed to remind lesser species that they were being judged from above. You are wasting your final minutes on procedure, he said. No, Nathan replied. I am spending them carefully. On the main tactical display, the Dominion fleet continued to drift forward, slow and confident, like a crowd crossing a street, because they knew every car would stop for them. Their formation was beautiful in the way a storm front is beautiful from a distance. Layered carriers, crescent cruisers, long command ships with engine trails pale as winter sunlight. Every public sensor in the system showed the same humiliating picture. Earth had sent one aging cruiser to answer an empire. That was the part the aliens understood. That was the part they were meant to understand. Nathan could feel Rachel beside him, still as a fence post. Only 3 people aboard knew the full reason the Resolute had been chosen. The rest had volunteered for a patrol assignment that became history while they were still drinking vending machine coffee and complaining about recycled air. That guilt sat heavy on Nathan's shoulders. He had signed the orders. He had looked those people in the eye at muster and told them they were ready. Now he had to make it true. Sir, Ellison said softly. Dominion ships are broadcasting our image across council space. Civilian networks are picking it up. Rachel checked her tablet. They are framing it as a surrender negotiation. Nathan nodded once. Good. The word landed hard. Several crew members turned toward him. He let them wonder for half a second, then said, Let them keep talking. Voss leaned closer in her feed. Captain, I understand your need to preserve dignity. Nathan's eye sharpened. No, Counselor, you do not. The bridge went quiet again, but this time the silence belonged to the humans. Nathan spoke slowly, not for drama, but so no translator could soften the edges. Dignity is not what keeps a ship between an armed fleet and 8 billion people. Duty does that. For the first time, Voss had no immediate answer. Vale did. He laughed, but now the laugh sounded forced. Duty will not save you. Nathan looked down at the green countdown, now under 12 minutes, then back at the enemy admiral. His voice stayed flat. It was never supposed to save us. The countdown reached 11 minutes and 40 seconds when every Dominion ship in the forward line turned its weapons toward the Resolute. The tactical display filled with red marks until there was almost no black left between them. Lieutenant Ellison stared at his station like the screen had personally betrayed him. Multiple target locks, he said, and his voice cracked on the last word. He cleared his throat and tried again. Correction, sir. Full fleet target lock. They are painting us with main batteries, missile systems, and boarding scanners. Nathan nodded like Ellison had just read the weather report. Copy that. Across the bridge, Chief Dana Ortiz muttered from engineering. That is a lot of hardware for one old cruiser. Rachel Hayes did not take her eyes off the tablet. They want the galaxy to see us blink. Nathan almost smiled at that, but not quite. His father used to say the ocean could smell panic. Nathan had grown up around lobster boats and winter docks, around men who came home quiet because the sea had taught them what boasting was worth. Space was not the ocean, but fear behaved the same way in both places. If you let it climb into your hands, it started steering. High Admiral Vale opened the channel again. This time, he let several of his officers appear behind him. Tall Valdran commanders in polished black armor watched the human bridge with open amusement. One of them said something in their native language, and the translation came through a second late. The mammal captain is documenting his funeral. Laughter moved across the Dominion command deck. A few human crew members stiffened. Nathan felt it too, that hot little spark behind the eyes, the kind that makes decent people want to say something stupid just to feel less small. He let it pass. Commander Hayes, he said. Add insult toward commanding officer to the behavioral record. Not relevant to the boundary violation, but useful for intent. Rachel tapped the tablet. Add it. Vale tilted his head. Do you truly believe your little record will matter when your ship is gone? Nathan looked at him for a long moment. Admiral, I have spent half my career learning that paperwork matters most to people who think they are above it. The Dominion officers stopped laughing one by one. Vale's mouth tightened. Counselor Voss reappeared in a smaller window, visibly uncomfortable now that the broadcast had become less ceremonial and more permanent. Captain Cole, I must advise against provocative language. Nathan turned slightly toward her feet. Counselor, the Dominion currently has more than 300 active weapons locks on a vessel that has not raised a single gun. If my sentence is the part you find provocative, your priorities need work. No one on the bridge smiled. They wanted to. Nathan could feel it ripple through them. Not humor exactly, but relief. Their captain was still there. Still steady. Still speaking like the ship had more time than it did. Sir, Ellison said, Dominion forward elements are moving into close approach. Range is now 12,000 miles and closing. Rachel checked another line of data. They are trying to pressure us into powering weapons. Nathan looked at the armament status. Every human turret remained cold. Every missile tube sealed. The Resolute had teeth, not many compared to the storm in front of them, but enough to make one final gesture if pride won over discipline. That was what Vale wanted. One twitch. One nervous human gun coming online. One mistake he could show the council and call aggression. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and spoke to the whole bridge without raising his voice. Listen to me. They are going to insult you. They are going to scare you. They may scratch the paint. Nobody fires unless I give the order twice. Not once. Twice. Chief Ortiz looked back from engineering. And if they board us? Nathan paused. That was the question nobody wanted answered. He thought of the picture in his jacket. He thought of Bangor in October, rain on the driveway, his wife standing barefoot by the kitchen door because she never remembered slippers. Then he thought of Earth behind him, huge and blue and sleeping under ordinary morning clouds. Then we make sure the record survives, he said. Vale watched him through the screen, trying to understand why the human bridge had gotten quieter instead of weaker. Nathan looked back at the countdown. 10 minutes and 5 seconds. Still too early. Still not enough. He took another sip of cold coffee and said, keep logging. At 9 minutes and 22 seconds, the Dominion stopped pretending. A single Valdrin cruiser slid out ahead of the formation, sleek and silver, its bow turning until it pointed directly at the Resolute. Lieutenant Ellison's hands froze over his console. Forward vessel is charging a plasma lance, low yield, narrow beam. Rachel's face changed just enough for Nathan to notice. It is a warning shot. Nathan looked at the enemy ship on the display, then at the faces around his bridge. This was the part that never made it into patriotic speeches. Waiting hurt. It felt unnatural, almost shameful, to sit in command of a warship and allow another vessel to take the first swing. Every instinct Nathan had earned in uniform told him to protect his people now, not later, not after some legal threshold, not after a countdown on a classified screen reached 0. Chief Ortiz gripped the edge of her engineering station. Captain, shields can take 1. Maybe 2 if they keep it narrow. Nathan nodded. Brace the ship. The order went out clean and calm. Across the bridge, seat harnesses clicked. Loose cups locked into magnetic trays. Somewhere behind the bulkhead, the Resolute gave a low mechanical groan, like an old house settling before a storm. Vale's voice came through the speaker, soft with pleasure. Observe, counselor. Even now, I offer them education instead of punishment. Nathan did not answer him. He pressed the ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. Impact is expected. Stay at your stations. Help the person next to you. That is all. The beam flashed past the bow a second later, close enough to turn every forward window white. The Resolute lurched hard to port. Alarm snapped on. Lights flickered. A panel near environmental control burst into sparks and died. No one screamed, but several people made the small involuntary sounds people make when the world drops under them. Nathan's harness caught his chest. His coffee cup stayed in place. For some stupid reason, that was what he noticed first. Then the emergency lights came back red, washing every face in the color of bad news. Damage report, he said. Ortiz was already moving. Forward shield grid is strained but holding. Secondary cooling line is venting into compartment 4. No hull breach. No casualties reported. The last sentence made Nathan exhale through his nose. He had not realized he was holding the breath. Rachel leaned closer, voice low enough that only he could hear. They missed on purpose. Nathan looked at the Dominion fleet. Then they still have choices. She studied him for a half second. So do we. That one landed harder than the beam. Nathan knew what she meant. They could light up the Resolute's weapons. They could answer pride with pride. They could give every frightened sailor on that bridge the relief of doing something. But relief was not the same as duty. He turned toward Ellison. Did we capture the shot telemetry? Ellison blinked, pulled himself back together, and checked his screen. Yes, sir. Full spectrum. It crossed within 500 yards of the bow. Append it to the record. Bill came back on, louder now. Captain Cole, your next lesson will not miss. Nathan rose from his chair, slow and deliberate, because standing too quickly would make him look angry. He was angry. He was angry enough that his hands wanted to shake. But he kept them at his sides and looked straight into the feed. High Admiral Vale, your vessel discharged an energy weapon inside the sole defensive approach while targeting a non-hostile Terran ship. We have not returned fire. We have not powered weapons. We have not crossed toward your formation. Vale's smile twitched. Counselor Voss looked down, probably reading the same law Rachel had open in front of her. Nathan continued, quieter now. You are running out of ways to call this peacekeeping. For the first time since the Dominion arrived, no one on their command deck laughed. Then the countdown slipped under 8 minutes, and the Resolute, scorched but silent, held its place. 7 minutes and 51 seconds remained when the Dominion sent its final demand. It did not come through Vale this time. It came as a formal packet, wrapped in council legal formatting and stamped with enough authority seals to make it look clean from a distance. Rachel opened it on her tablet, read the first lines, and her mouth went flat. They are ordering us to lower shields, open command access, and transfer sole traffic control to Dominion Peacekeeping Authority. Chief Ortiz looked up from rerouting power around the damaged cooling line. That sounds like invasion with a nicer haircut. It is, Rachel said. Nathan held out his hand. Rachel passed him the tablet. The words were polite. That made them worse. There was no screaming, no wild threat, no ugly confession. Just soft language arranged over theft. Temporary stabilization. Protective custody. Responsible transition. Nathan had seen men use language like that before, in smaller rooms, over smaller lives. People rarely called a thing what it was when they expected to profit from it. He handed the tablet back. Put it on the record. Vale appeared again, his face restored to that smooth, patient amusement. Captain Cole, you have been given more courtesy than your position deserves. Lower your shields and transmit your command codes. Your crew will be treated humanely. Your world will be spared unnecessary panic. Nathan stood. His legs felt heavier than they should have. The warning shot had left the deck vibrating under his boots, a faint shudder that kept reminding everyone how thin a ship really was when space wanted in. He walked to the forward communications rail and stopped beneath the main screen. Every person on the bridge watched him, but he kept his eyes on Vale. High Admiral, before I respond, I am transmitting a compiled record to the Council Public Archive. Vale's expression sharpened. You will transmit nothing without Dominion review. Already sent, Rachel said. Her voice was calm enough to be insulting. Across the ship, the communications array pushed the file out in a tight burst, not toward Earth, not toward the hidden places no one was supposed to notice, but straight into the civilian relay net the Dominion had opened for their own broadcast. The same network they had used to humiliate one human ship now carried every threat, every weapons lock, every border approach, every second of Counselor Voss pretending not to understand what was happening. On the smaller feed, Voss went pale. She looked away from the camera, probably toward aides who were suddenly talking too fast. Bill did not move at all. What is this? He asked. Nathan answered plainly. Evidence. Evidence of what? Your helplessness. No. Nathan glanced once at the green countdown. 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Evidence that the Resolute is not here as a combatant. Silence spread across the open channel. Even the background noise on the Dominion bridge seemed to fade. Rachel touched one more command, and the ship identification code changed on the public feed. For 19 hours, every outside scanner had labeled the Resolute as a patrol cruiser. Now the old diplomatic tag unfolded underneath it, buried in treaty language most of the galaxy had forgotten because nobody expected humans to remember paperwork older than a warship. Neutral boundary witness vessel. Authorized under Sol Accords, Article 9. Nathan heard Ellison whisper, "There it is." Vale stared at the tag like it had insulted his bloodline. Voss finally spoke, her voice thin. "Captain Cole, that classification is rarely used. Rare does not mean expired, Nathan said. Your council ratified it after the Arden Gate incident. Earth was there. We signed the paper copy. For the first time, a few human faces changed. Not smiles yet. Something better. Understanding. They were not abandoned. They were not bait in the cheap sense. They were the camera, the notary, the witness with engines, and a stubborn captain. Nathan looked back at Vale. You have been threatening a neutral witness vessel in a protected approach corridor while broadcasting it to the galaxy. I recommend you stop helping my case. Vale's golden eyes burned with humiliation. A witness can still be removed. Nathan felt Rachel look at him. The countdown hit 6 minutes. His fear was still there, quiet and loyal, but now it had company. You can try, he said. But you should ask yourself why Earth sent a witness before it sent a warning. At 5 minutes and 48 seconds, High Admiral Vale stopped smiling like a conqueror and started smiling like a man who had been embarrassed in public. Nathan knew that look. He had seen it in bars outside naval bases, in hearing rooms, in officers who mistook rank for wisdom. It was the look people wore right before they made a bad decision and called it strength. Vale turned away from the camera for a moment, speaking to someone off-feed. His officers moved quickly behind him. The Dominion fleet shifted formation, not much, just enough for every Terran sensor to notice. The front line tightened. The heavier ships moved up. The beautiful half-circle became a fist. Lieutenant Ellison looked down at his console. Captain, they are advancing again. Not adrift this time. Powered approach. Rachel checked the legal overlay. Her voice stayed steady, but Nathan heard the edge in it. They are 3,000 miles from the sole defensive boundary. Chief Ortiz said from engineering, forward shields are still holding, but I would sleep better if they were not the only thing between us and a bad afternoon. Nathan did not look back. I would sleep better in Maine. Ortiz gave a short breath that almost became a laugh, and that tiny human sound did more for the bridge than any speech could have. Vale faced the channel again. Captain Cole, your little trick has been noted. The Dominion does not recognize witness protections for vessels obstructing humanitarian stabilization. Nathan answered without moving. That is a long way to say invasion. Counselor Voss cut in quickly. Captain, I urge restraint in your terminology. Counselor, Nathan said, restraint is the only reason you are still watching a conversation instead of a war. Voss went quiet. The countdown reached 5 minutes. On the tactical display, the Dominion markers kept coming. The boundary line curved across the screen in thin blue light, an old legal mark around an old human home. Nathan had seen that line in training 1,000 times. Back then it had looked abstract, something instructors pointed at while young officers thought about lunch. Now it looked like the front porch of every house on Earth. He thought of school buses in Ohio, fishing boats off Alaska, apartment lights in Queens, a woman in Bangor who would be making coffee soon if the time delay lined up right. He wondered if she was awake. He hoped she was not. Range to boundary, he said. Ellison swallowed. 2,000 miles. Closing at 800 miles per minute. Rachel stepped closer. Once they cross, Article 9 locks. Their own broadcast proves intent. Nathan nodded. I know. She lowered her voice. You do not have to carry that alone. For a second, he wanted to tell her that captains always did. That was the lie officers told themselves when they were tired. Instead, he said, then help me carry it correctly. Rachel's eyes softened for less than a heartbeat. Yes, sir. Vale's voice returned, harder now. Last chance, human. Lower your shields, or I will treat your vessel as an unlawful obstruction. Nathan looked at the old diplomatic tag under the Resolute's name. Neutral boundary witness vessel. It seemed almost ridiculous, a quiet phrase standing in front of an empire. But quiet things could matter. Wedding vows were quiet. Last words were quiet. A judge reading a sentence did not need to shout. High Admiral Vale, Nathan said, you are approaching a sovereign defensive boundary after issuing threats, firing a warning shot, and demanding control of Sol traffic. Turn your fleet around. Vale laughed once, sharp and humorless. Or what? Nathan let the question sit there. He did not fill it with pride. He did not dress it up. He simply watched the blue line and listened to the soft beeping of the ship that had brought them this far. Ellison whispered, 1,000 miles. No one moved. 500. Nathan's mouth went dry. 100. Rachel's tablet chimed. The Dominion lead ships crossed the blue line together. It was not dramatic on the screen, just red icons passing over a mark. but every human on that bridge felt the weight of it. Nathan closed his eyes for 1 second, not to pray, not exactly, but to make sure the man who opened them would be the captain they needed. When he looked again, his voice was quiet. "Transmit the key." Rachel entered the command. The Resolute sent one narrow signal into the dark, short enough to look harmless, old enough for the council to ignore, and human enough to mean exactly one thing. The choice had been made. The signal from the Resolute lasted less than 2 seconds. To the Dominion sensors, it looked almost pathetic, a narrow pulse sent from a damaged cruiser with one strained shield grid and no powered weapons. Vale saw it cross his tactical display and actually smiled again. "A distress call," he said, loud enough for the council feed to hear. At last. Nathan did not correct him. He simply watched the darkness beyond the Dominion formation, the old places where human maps had too many blank spaces and polite warning labels. Around Saturn, the rings caught sunlight in thin silver lines. Past the asteroid belt, dead mining platforms drifted with their lights off. Near the shadowed side of old relay stations, the background static began to change. Lieutenant Ellison frowned at his screen. "Sir, I am getting sensor returns behind the Dominion line." Rachel stood very still. "How many?" Ellison looked once, then again, like the number might behave better if he gave it another chance. "I do not know how to count them yet." Vale's officers started moving in the background of his feed. One turned sharply toward a side display. Another spoke too fast for the translator to catch. Then the first black shape appeared behind the Dominion fleet, not jumping into space with some bright dramatic flash, but sliding out of shadow like it had been there the whole time. A Terran destroyer, engine cold until that moment, woke under the cover of an asteroid cluster. Then another. Then 6 more. Then an entire line of ships unfolded from the dark, their hulls painted flat charcoal, their running lights coming alive one by one. Ellison whispered, "United States Navy transponders confirmed." Chief Ortiz leaned over her console. "That is the Archer Group." Rachel's tablet filled with green. "Mars Defense Command is active. Lunar batteries are awake. Saturn pickets are burning hot. We have home fleet assets on every rear vector." The bridge of the Resolute did not cheer. Not yet. The feeling that passed through them was too deep for noise. It was the feeling of being trapped in a cold room and suddenly hearing your father's truck pull into the driveway. Nathan felt it hit him in the chest, hard enough that he had to look down for a second. He had known they were there. He had signed for it. He had carried the secret through every insult, every warning light, every second his crew thought they had been left alone. Knowing did not make the relief smaller. Vale's face changed as more ships appeared. Behind his Grand Dominion line, Earth opened its eyes. Cruisers powered up from behind dust fields. Carriers rose from beneath false thermal signatures. Missile defense platforms dropped their civilian masks. Old salvage hulks split open to reveal rail arrays and drone bays that had been sleeping in silence. Every hidden position had waited for the same thing, the Dominion crossing the boundary by choice. A new voice entered the channel. Female, older, calm enough to quiet every human on the bridge. "This is Admiral Laura Bennett, commanding Earth Home Fleet." Her image appeared beside the tactical feed, silver hair pulled back, dark uniform plain, eyes steady. Behind her, officers moved with the quiet speed of people who had rehearsed disaster until it became procedure. She did not look triumphant. She looked tired, focused, and very American in the way she wasted no words. "Captain Cole, your record is received. Your witness tag is verified. Thank you for your patience." Nathan stood a little straighter. "Admiral, Resolute confirms Dominion forces crossed the sole defensive boundary after threat, weapons lock, and warning discharge." "Confirmed," Bennett said. Then she looked at Vale. The smile on the Dominion Admiral's face was gone now, replaced by the slow, dawning anger of a man realizing the door had closed behind him. Bennett's voice stayed even. "Hi, Admiral Vale. Power down your weapons and hold position. Your fleet is surrounded inside a protected sovereign approach corridor. Do not attempt slipspace departure. Do not target Earth vessels. Do not make your crews pay for your pride." Vale stared at her. "You hit an entire fleet." Admiral Bennett did not blink. "No. We parked it at home." On the Resolute, someone finally let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Nathan did not turn around. He kept his eyes on Vale, because the most dangerous moment was not when a bully thought he was winning. It was when he realized everyone had seen him lose. High Admiral Vale did what proud men often do when the room turns against them. He looked for the nearest button that could make him feel powerful again. On the Dominion bridge, his officers waited with their hands above their controls, watching him instead of their screens. That told Nathan everything. The fleet was not thinking anymore. It was taking the temperature of one humiliated man. Power weapons, Vale ordered. Prepare for synchronized strike pattern. Admiral Bennett's reply came before the order finished traveling through his own command net. High Admiral, I will say this once. Any Dominion vessel that powers a weapon will be disabled. Vale leaned toward the camera, his golden eyes bright with insult. You would not dare fire on a Dominion command ship in front of the Galactic Council. Bennett looked almost sad for him. You crossed our line in front of the Galactic Council. On the Resolute, Lieutenant Ellison stared at the tactical board. Sir, Dominion forward batteries are warming up. Multiple ships. Rachel Hayes spoke over him, crisp and low. Home fleet is painting their weapons only. Engines and command relays locked as secondary targets. Chief Ortiz let out a breath from engineering. That is a surgeon's map. Nathan kept his eyes on the enemy formation. He could see the trap now in a way the Dominion finally could too. It was not just ships behind them. It was space itself. The dust fields around the asteroid belt were full of passive mirrors that had been feeding false distance readings for months. The dead mining platforms were not dead. The old weather satellites were not weather satellites anymore. The salvage hulks that Vale had dismissed as human junk were anchor points for a gravity net stretched quiet and patient across the approach corridor. The Dominion had not been surrounded by a fleet alone. They had been guided into a room built by people who expected arrogance to walk in without reading the sign. Vale snapped an order in his own language. The translation lagged, then caught up. Slip space withdrawal. Immediate. His navigation officer answered too quietly for the main translator, but the fear in the alien's posture needed no translation. Rachel read the data first. Their drives are trying to spool. The gravity net is holding. Ellison looked up. They cannot jump. For the first time since the confrontation began, Nathan allowed himself to sit back. Not because it was over, because the part that depended on him had finally worked. The Resolute had stood still long enough. The record had survived. The key had opened the door. Now the hard part belonged to Admiral Bennett. Vale turned on Nathan as if the human captain had personally stolen the stars from him. What did your ship do? Nathan answered with the same tired honesty he had used all day. We asked you to choose. One cruiser cannot trap a fleet. No, Nathan said. One cruiser can prove a fleet chose to enter the trap. Counselor Voss appeared again, her polished calm completely gone. Admiral Vale, the council recommends immediate compliance. Vale stared at her in disbelief. Now you recommend? Nathan almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The same council that had warned Earth to be reasonable was now hiding behind the legal record Earth had preserved for them. Bennett opened fleet-wide transmission. Dominion vessels, this is your final instruction. Shut down weapons. Kill forward thrust. Place your crews in safe posture. This is not a negotiation, but it can still end without needless loss. One Dominion destroyer powered its main lance anyway. It never fired. 3 Earth ships answered with clean, silent precision, cutting power to its weapon array and drive control in less than 4 seconds. No fireball. No grand explosion. Just a warship suddenly dark and drifting, embarrassed more than broken. The message was clear enough that every other Dominion weapon's signature began to fade. On the Resolute, nobody cheered. Nathan watched the red icons cool one by one and felt the weight of his own hands. Vale had come to find weakness. What he found was restraint with a trigger discipline measured in inches. Bennett's voice returned, calm as a judge closing a file. Thank you for making the correct decision. Nathan looked at the blue curve of Earth's boundary line and finally understood why his crew had been afraid of the wrong thing. The scary part was never that humanity had only one ship in front. The scary part was that humanity had been polite enough to send one ship first. The Dominion fleet surrendered in pieces, not with one grand gesture, but with hundreds of small lights going dim across the tactical board. Weapon systems cooled. Engines dropped to idle. Command relays opened for inspection. One by one, the red icons that had filled the Resolute's screen turned amber, then gray. It should have felt like victory. Nathan had imagined. In the private place men never admit to having. that if he ever helped stop an invasion, he might feel taller afterward. He did not. He felt older. The bridge smelled like burnt wiring and reheated air. His crew sat at their stations with the stunned quiet of people who had been holding their breath for too long and had forgotten how to let it out. Lieutenant Ellison wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve when he thought no one was watching. Chief Ortiz rested both hands on her console and whispered, "We are still here." Nathan heard her. That mattered more than any metal would. Admiral Bennett appeared again, her face steady but softer now. "Captain Cole, Home Fleet has control of the corridor. You are cleared to withdraw behind the lunar line for repairs." Nathan looked through the forward glass. Beyond the ships, beyond the cold and the steel and the old arrogance of empires, Earth hung in the distance like a blue porch light left on for someone coming home late. "Acknowledged, Admiral," he said. "Resolute is moving home." High Admiral Vale requested one final private channel, but Bennett kept it public. That was the first lesson. Men who threaten worlds do not get private endings. Vale looked smaller now, not physically, but in the way pride shrinks when it has nothing left to stand on. "Why?" he asked. His voice had lost its theater. "Why send a witness first? Why not show the fleet and force us back before this began?" Nathan could have given him the legal answer. He could have talked about treaties, thresholds, sovereign corridors, council archives, and the clean chain of evidence Rachel had built second by second. Instead, he looked at the tired faces of his crew, at the young officer with a baby in Iowa, at Ortiz still smelling smoke from her station, at Rachel Hayes standing straight because she refused to let exhaustion bend her before the channel closed. "Because strength is not the first thing decent people should reach for," Nathan said. The bridge went still around him. Even Bennett did not interrupt. Nathan continued, quieter. "Earth has made enough mistakes to know that power without patience becomes just another kind of hunger. So we wait. We warn. We leave a door open. Not because we are afraid. Because once that door closes, people who never gave the orders still have to live with what follows." Vale stared at him for a long time. "And if I had turned back? Then you would have gone home," Nathan said. "Angry, embarrassed, alive, and wrong. That would have been enough." No one spoke after that. There was nothing left to add. The council feed carried the silence across half the known galaxy, and for once, the silence did not belong to fear. It belonged to understanding. The Resolute turned slowly toward Earth, her bow scorched, her shields tired, her crew alive. Behind her, the home fleet opened a lane without ceremony. No trumpets, no speeches, just ships making room for one old cruiser that had done exactly what it was sent to do. Nathan finally took the photo from his jacket pocket. His wife was laughing in it, caught mid-motion on a windy Maine beach, one hand holding her hair down, the ocean behind her gray and restless. He touched the edge of the picture with his thumb and let himself feel the shake in his hand. Rachel noticed, but she did not mention it. Good officers knew when silence was a kindness. "Captain," Ellison said softly, "message from Earth Command. They say the public archive is already being mirrored across council space." Ortiz looked up. "So everybody saw?" Nathan watched the planet grow larger on the screen. Morning sunlight touched the curve of the Atlantic, turning clouds gold over a world that had slept through most of its own judgment. "Yes," he said, "everybody saw. And maybe, somewhere out there, some young officer on some distant alien ship would remember it years from now before crossing another quiet line. Maybe they would learn that mercy is not weakness, that patience is not surrender, and that the most dangerous people in the universe are not the ones eager to prove their strength. They are the ones who can hold it back until the last possible second and still give you a chance to turn around."